we are given this question that says that 0.0048 multiplied by what? 0.81. Everything divided by 0.0027, then multiplied by 0.004, right? So we want to solve this expression or equation here and then leave our answer in what? A standard form. So that is the key word here. So this is what? A standard form. So this is going to be a standard form of what? Numbers, right? So this is the standard form of what? Numbers. We have the standard form of a quadratic equation and the standard form of a polynomial and so on and so forth. So anyone that you want to see or you want us to make a video on, make sure that you comment in the comment section below, right? So do you want to know how to write the standard form of what? A quadratic equation and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so the idea of a standard form of a numbers here is that you should know exactly who or what we are calling what? A standard form. So the key here is that you must first of all understand uh, that a standard form of a number. So let's look at this thing. This is a whiteboard marker, right? So that's the name behind that, and then you are able to identify this thing by what? Its image. Is that okay? And then this is what? A whiteboard, right? Okay, perfect. So when you say a standard form, who do you call a standard form, or what exactly do you call a standard form? That is the key word here you must hold in hand before you should have the idea on how to solve this question here. Now, the meaning of the standard form, this is how it looks like. So you have any number here. So yes, this is just a letter, right? It can be any number, and then multiply by what? 10, and then everything here is going to be raised to the power n, right? So don't let these letters scare you. So I'm going to explain that in just a few seconds. What it means is that this guy here, it must be between 1 and what? And 10, right? So between the ages of what? 1 up to 10, this is where this guy is going to be. So this guy can be 2, 2.1, 2.3, and so on and so forth, up to 9, 9 point something. You can't go beyond this thing, right? So you can't go beyond it. Is that okay? So this is just a number that we are having. That is just a 10 in this case here. And then we have the n here. The n here is the number, that is what we call an integer, right? So integer. If you are someone who normally follows, you understand that we've already have a video on what this thing here. So you may check the playlist down below. Maybe I will leave the link in the description box below. Okay, so this is an integer. The meaning of the integer here says that both negative and positive numbers, so including zero, right? So in some cases, including zero. Okay, so that is all. Maybe let's say -2, -1, and so on and so forth. You have 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth, right? So this n here is just an integer, and then the a here must be between what? 1 to 10. Okay, perfect. So let's look at example before we start solving our problem here. Let's say this guy here is a 3.2 here multiplied by 10 raised to the power -2 is what? In a standard form, right? So this is what we call a standard form. So what about this guy? Let's say 49 multiplied by 10 raised to the power 2. Is this guy also in standard form? This is not in the standard form. The reason is that it doesn't comply with what we call what? A standard form. For sure, this guy here, the first number before the multiplication sign must be between what? 1 to 1 to 10, right? So must be between 1 to 10. Look at the guy here. This is what? 49. So 49 here is not between 1 to 10. So therefore, you haven't qualified. We cannot call you what? A standard form, right? Okay, why do you use the standard form of it? You see, you have a very large number, a very small number. So multiplication or additions of those numbers may be sometimes very tedious, right? So that is why we introduced the idea on the standard form. Make sure that you check the playlist down below. Okay, if you enjoyed this video so far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Don't forget to comment in the comment section below if you have any question relating to a standard form of anything that you want us to help you on. Now let's proceed on solving this problem. Now that we know what a standard form is, now the key here is that your first step is to make sure that you are converting all these people here into a standard form, right? So you have to convert everything here. For sure, you can see that this number here, it is not in what? In a standard form, as well as this guy, as well as this, and then this. Because the number here must be between what, 1 to 10. Okay, so you have to convert this guy to a standard form. So the key here is that look at where this point is located. So if this point is located somewhere here, we know that between 1 to 10, this is the first number that we are dealing with. So you have to move this point here. So 1, 2, and then 3, right? So now that we are having our first number here, which is between 1 to 10, for sure we can move this point here to here. So that is going to be, we are going to get, here is going to be 4 point 8, right? So 4.8 and then multiply by what? By 10 here. We know the definitions of the standard form. So here, pay attention here. So here it means that if your point is before the number that is not zero, right? So you consider you have 0.000. So if the point is before a number that is not zero here, right? So these two guys are not zero, right? So there here's the exponent of the 10 is going to be a negative. Is that okay? So the point is before zero, right? So that is just a simple trick here. If the point is before zero here, so 0.00, the exponent of the 10 is going to be a negative, right? So maybe we consider that zero is nothing. So why do we take that into consideration? Maybe that is an assumption for you to just remember, right? Okay, so we are going, how many times do you move? You move how many times? 3 times. So 1, 2, and then 3. So we are going to have the exponent of the 10 to be what? Negative 4, negative 3. Okay, so let me change this pen here. So the pen is not flowing properly. So we are having what? Negative 3. Negative 3, right? So negative 3. So okay, so this is clearly in what? In the standard form. Can you see that? Okay, perfect. Because you have what? Between this 4.8 here is between 1 to 10, and then we have our 10 and then multiply by the integer. So this is perfect in the standard. So this one goes for only this guy here. Yeah, this is for only this guy. So what about the second one? Remember, there's a multiplication here. Bring down multiplication as it is, and then maybe you may put this one in brackets in some cases, provided that you know what you are doing, right? Okay, so here this guy. I hope by now you should be able to know how to convert this guy. Maybe you may pause the video and try this thing. Come back and come and check. Okay, congrats. Just congrats for trying, whether wrong or correct. Is that okay? So perfect. Now that this point is here, we are going to move this point to this side. That's going to be 8.0. What is left here? 1, right? And then multiply by 10. 10 is something constant under the definitions of a standard form here. And then how many times did you move? Only what? Only 1. So we are going to add the exponent of the 10 to be negative 1. So the same applies to the guys that are down here, the denominator is here, right? So okay, here we are going to have 2.7 multiplied by what? 10 raised to the power. How many times have you moved? 1, 2, 3, right? So raised to the power negative 3, and then multiply by here is going to be 4.0, right? So 4.0, or maybe 4, because you are the number here is just 4, right? So 4 multiplied by what? By 10. How many times did you move? 1, 2, and then 3 raised to the power negative 3, right? Okay, now that we've seen the standard form of what all the numbers that we want to deal with, the reason why we are doing this is that if you are given something like 4 on 2, we know how to divide this thing, because this is just a numbers that we know from since some days or some years back, right? Okay, but numbers like this, now we are moving from this family and going to this family, right? So this is how these people looks like. Okay, now that you have the numbers, so and they require, or maybe the standard form here. Now, let's see how to do the multiplication. That is where the idea of indices comes in, right? So don't be confused with the names here. They are just a name. So the most important thing is to know what they are telling us, the meaning behind those names. This is a very nice mistake we see most of the students doing relating to questions like this, right? So now for you to avoid this mistake is that, what I mean by mistake is that your first step here is you must not convert this guy straightforward to what? A standard form, right? So maybe questions like that, you may find it difficult to move on to the next step in some cases. So the simple way of solving this thing is that we already know, since a childhood, we all know that dividing, let's say, 10 on 2 is going to be 5, right? So and so on and so forth. And then you also know the law of what? Indices, that says that if you are multiplying and then the bases are the same, right? So what are we going to do? You add what? The exponent. So that's going to be 2 multiplied by exponent 2 plus or plus 3. That's a 2 raised to the power raised to the power 6. And then when you are dividing, so maybe when you are dividing and then the bases are the same, let's say 2 is here and then 1 is here, then that's going to be 4, 2 minus 1. So you are going to subtract the exponent. That was when you are dividing here, and then here you are you are multiplying. So these are the idea that you must use in solving this problem straightforward. Now, your first step in solving this thing is not to convert it to the standard form straightforward here, but rather convert it to something like this that you already know how to solve with the combinations of the indices, right? So, okay, let's see how to do that. So your first step here is to convert this guy to what? A very whole number, right? So what I mean by whole number, instead of moving 3 steps here, so we are going to convert all the numbers here. So we are going to have you move to the last part here, which is four steps here, right? So we are going how many steps? 4 steps. So we are going to have 48 here multiply by 10. So instead of 10 exponent negative 3 is going to be exponential negative 4, right? Is that okay? So here is going to be negative 4. You know why negative 4 at this point? Because the point here is before the number that is not 0. Is that okay? So the same applies to this guy here. So multiply by what? We are going to have 81. 81. So 81 here. And then how many steps are we going? We are going 2 times. So multiply by 10 raised to the power negative 2. Once again, you know why we are having the negative 2 there. So down here too, we are going to have 27 here, and then multiply by 10 raised to the power how many times? 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So negative 4, of course, and then multiply by what? Here is going to be just 4, and then multiply by what? By what? How many times? 10 raised to the power 1, 2, 3, right? So negative 3. Is that okay? So all these numbers are numbers that we know how to handle instead of dealing with the decimal points. Is that okay? Okay, so perfect. Now we can rearrange these people. So the 10 family should go to one side. You have 48 and then multiply by 8, 1. Multiply by this 10 here, raised to the power negative 4. And then multiply by another 10 here, raised to the power negative 2. So everything on what? The down here, we are going to have 27 here. We have 1, 4 here. And then multiply by this 10, which is 10 raised to the power negative 4, and then multiply by this 10 here, that's 10 raised to the power negative 3. Is that okay? So we know how to handle this guy and this guy here, as well as these people, right? So since we've got to this point here, remember here is A1, right? So we're not editing from the previous part, so make sure that you check that. Now, dealing with these two people, that is easy, right? So these two people, someone may choose to multiply this guy here because they are coming from the same family. So what I mean by the same family, we have a whole number, we can multiply them. And then they down here to the same thing. So if you do that, you should have, if you multiply this and this one here, this guy, and then divided by this, you should have 36 here, right? So if you divide this guy by that, you should have a test. If you have any issue on this, just comment in the comment section below, right? And then dealing with the what? The indices part, you can see that this guy here, this guy 10 exponent negative 4 is the same as 10 exponential negative 4 down here. So let's say I have 3 on 3, they cancel out. So the answer is just what? 1, right? So the same thing, these two people can just cancel out, and then I'm having just what? 1 here. Is that okay? And then multiply by, look at where we are going to apply the law of indices here. That says that if you are dividing, right? So if you are dividing, I can see the same 10 here and then 10 here. What are we going to do? You subtract this one by this, right? So yeah, that is what 10 here raised to the power negative 2, which is the top one, minus negative 3, the down one, right? So these two people. Remember to put the negative in bracket to avoid any confusion there. So multiply by 1 is just going to be 36, right? So 36, and then we have 10 here, then this that is going to be negative 2, and then plus 3. This guy tends to be a positive. So that is going to be 36, and then multiply by 10 raised to the power. This guy is going to be 1, right? So this is the answer that we are required of you, right? So to have this thing in what leave your answer in the standard form. So you must, the question here is that, is this guy in the standard form? Remember the definition of the standard form, that says that the number that's come before the multiplication sign here must be between 1 to 10. And then here we are having the case to be 36. Is that okay? So having this thing to be tested, you must convert this guy to the standard form. So how do you do that? So with this 36 here, we know that we be assumed that the point is here. Is that okay? You need to come back. right? The point is not here. There's nothing here, right? So the point is here. If you are dealing with a whole number, so going back like this, that is going to be 3.6 here multiplied by the 10 here. Remember, so once you move back here, the point is after the number that is not zero. Right? So if you are if you're after a number that is not zero, your exponent must be what? A positive. Just like in the case of where you come before the number that is zero, then your exponent is going to be negative, right? So here the point is after the number that is not zero here. So your exponent is a positive here. So how many times did you move? You move just one, so one here, and then we have this 10 already there. So that is 10 raised to the power. So we are going to have 3.6 multiplied by 10 raised to the power. You know what to do? 2 here. So how did I get it to? This and this guy are the same. For that reason, you are going to add their exponent. That is the 1 plus 1 here. So making 3.6 exponent multiplied by 10 exponent of exponent. If you have any question relating to this, don't forget to comment in the comment section below.